Call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start with approval of the agenda. Is there any changes?
The copy in front of you has one change. We've crossed out action item 1 and 2, which is the snow and ice removal contract. We're waiting on some paperwork before we can finalize that contract. So.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda with those changes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Approval of the minutes, October 8th board meeting and the October 15th work group session.
I think there's one change there I wanted to bring up.
Okay.
Okay.
Where it says Amelia eradicated the Palmer, she actually didn't do it herself.
No. Okay. Which one is that? It's on the 8th board meeting?
Yeah. The rest of it's fine. It's just that, yep, the Minnesota Department of Ag was the ones that were there taking care of it. But Amelia's was the one that got it started, called them and all that stuff. So just a clarification.
Will do.
Sounds good though. Okay, you need a motion to approve that?
I make a motion we approve that with the amended version.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the October 15th work group session is not really a meeting, but we did get a summary of the minutes there. Motion to approve that?
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public comment period. Yvonne's not here. Okay, appointment with Sheriff Rodney Barch. Is he here? Yes, right there.
Well.
Morning.
Good morning.
Fraud prevention investigator Nate Barker. Sheriff Barch wasn't able to make it.
Okay.
My point in being here today is just to update the
Nate,
board.
Before we get started,
Yeah.
these microphones you have to kind of half swallow it.
Is that better?
Yeah. Thank you.
My point in being here today is just to update the board in my investigations in the past fiscal year, which was July 1 of 2018 up until June 30th, 2019. That's the state fiscal year that I run on. I'm the fourth investigator in the last 6 years, and so this past year that I've been here, been trying to take strides so there's not another one anytime soon. That being said, Houston County is one of 5 counties that I work assistance fraud cases in, employed by the Wabasha County Sheriff's Office, and then Goodhue County, Wabasha, Winona, Houston, and Fillmore County. Houston County in specific, Human Services here had referred 18 fraud referral cases to me to investigate, and at the end of those investigations there was found savings and overpayments totaled just over $41,000. The year prior to that, 12 cases were referred to the investigator prior to me, with some savings of around $4,000. Again, I've been taking strides to spread myself through all the counties, as some of the investigators have not as much in the past. so that Houston County gets their fair shake of me as well. And I feel like I proved that with some of my overpayments and savings from last year. And I expect there are some changes coming down the road with possible another investigator, some additional grant monies coming from the state. That is yet to be determined of how much and when and who, but that is coming down the pipe as well. If it is me in this county, I can promise that these numbers, these referrals, I hope can stay up to the level that they were for me last year, as well as get some of these savings and overpayments back to the county, and keep benefit monies out of fraudsters' hands and in the hands of people that actually need the assistance to get back on their feet. That's about all I had. I plan to come each year and continuously update the board with past year's numbers. You have any questions for me at all?
Yeah, Nate, 18 for Houston County. Say that the other counties are at least at 18. That's 90 investigations in quite a large geographical area. That's really got to tax your time, right? I mean,
I'm spread thin, and there's a lot of there's quite a bit of windshield time for me as well.
do you have secretarial assistance at all, or?
I do have 4 hours of help a month to help me with some paperwork filing. So, and that was
Any way to get that up to 5?
yeah, yeah. I could use 4 a week would be nice. I believe my total overall cases that I investigated were 182
I
last
see
year.
that.
Houston County and Fillmore counties have typically been the lowest amount of referrals, but that's in correlation with population and amount
Well,
of
Mike,
people on assistance.
It's a sympathetic question that I'm asking because it just seems like you'd be stretched to the max to try to-
Well, I have to agree with you that I do feel pretty stretched sometimes in those, and I think that played a pretty large role in me being the 4th investigator in the last 6 years.
Yeah, that's what I was.
The burnout
Yeah.
rate is pretty high, so I've been trying to come up with ways to change things that I don't get so burnt out.
Well, it's an area that obviously people who are using social services for the most part need them and so forth, but it's a very sensitive issue with many citizens when they think somebody's conning the system, you know, and it's like, I work for mine, what's that? So and so, you know, and so it's a very sensitive area and important, I think, to citizens to know that someone's paying attention to it. And,
I agree 100%.
you know, so
You must work very closely though with like Karen.
I do, yeah.
Finance people in each county. I know Karen's been behind this for years now.
Yeah, it's
So.
very good support from
Mhm.
Human Services. It's been really nice.
So if a citizen had a suspicion or whatever, do you ever get contacted? I suppose a lot of people don't even know you exist. And
I do get contacted directly from
You do.
citizens sometimes. Someone had contacted me last week, and they had looked up on some website, and my name and number was on there. I'm not sure what that was, but there's lots of different ways that they can get in contact with me or report suspected fraud. Remain anonymous doing it. There's hotlines through the state, and those tips trickle down to me. Otherwise, they can always stop in at Human Services or call in and report that, and that'll eventually get to me.
well, keep up the good work, and I hope to see you next year.
Yeah, me as well.
Do you, now those citizen complaints,
do you have to refer them back to Human Services before you act on it? Or, I mean, you could get deluged with complaints. I mean, from that perspective, do you have to work with Human Services as far as some validity to the complaint before you take off on it?
No, not necessarily. I could investigate my own assistance fraud case essentially without the help of Human Services. I'd say 95% of the time I do work with Human Services, just essentially so that they're aware of if this person had come in and reapplied or something like that, that they're aware that I'm working a case on them. It doesn't have to solely rest on Human Services, but it very often does.
I just look at the fact that if you're taking them from outside sources, you could really get buried. I mean,
I try and
many
mitigate.
already it's,
Yeah, it's a constant struggle, but trying to find ways to investigate fraud and keep it in the hands that it should be in, as well as there's only so many hours in the day as well. So
I'm just curious on in 2018 there was 12 cases and it recovered 4,000. This year's 18, he covered 41.
mm-hmm.
The disparity, just on because of different cases.
Very, very likely could be. I know the cases that I worked on in Houston County and the results in overpayments and savings that came from them. I did not go back and research why that was such a wide range, but very likely was a few of my cases I remember were pretty large discrepancies and resulted in large overpayments.
Okay.
And it just one or two cases. I've worked some other cases in other counties where one case was 40,000 alone in an overpayment or savings. So that's
I
it
was just
can-
looking at the graph and I seen the big.
yeah. That's likely what happened in that situation.
Well, thank you for your work.
Yeah, we appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. I'll-
And we hope you keep doing it for a long
Yes.
time.
I plan as of now. I plan on it.
Okay, that's good.
I'll leave cards and
Okay.
feel free to contact me directly if you have questions about my role or any of your constituents have questions for me or anything like that. I'm happy to answer them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen, do you have anything to add to that? You
No,
work
we just.
very closely.
Yeah, we just really appreciate the work Nate does, and there are opportunities for some more funding, so we're hopefully going to get a little more help for him, but we work really well. We bounce cases back and forth all the time to see what the path needs to be, so.
Yeah, thank you too. Okay. Aaron, I believe you're on next with the comprehensive land use survey.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning. Morning.
So I wanted to come here today to update you on our process with the comprehensive land use update. The committee advising on the update has finalized the survey. That survey is now live. It's accessible off the county website. If one were to go to the county webpage under the announcements header, there is a comprehensive land use survey link that takes you right to the online application. As of this morning, we've got 15 responses through the online process. For those who don't want to utilize the online option, we do have hard copies available in the Environmental Service Office here at the county. We also have them at the public libraries in Caledonia, Holka, Houston, La Crescent, and Spring Grove. Zoning staff's also talked with the librarians there to advise them how they can inform people who come there that they can also use their computers to take the online version. The online version is preferable from the standpoint of utilizing the data because it will save us a tremendous time in entering all the data from the hard copies. The survey takes about 30 minutes to complete. If I look at the 15 that have been submitted, the average time spent on those surveys is 30 minutes.
Eric, when did these actually go
I'm sorry?
online? When did this actually go online?
It went online sometime last week, I believe. I could get you the
So you
actual
got
date.
15 already.
15 already, yes. We are doing a push to try to get some more. There will be some advertisements in the area newspapers in the future. We are handing out flyers at the drop sites to everyone who gets a receipt at those, indicating that they could go give us input. And we are contacting city, and we've contacted already city and township folks to let them know of the process. They have also sort of acted as the test run for the survey that's live. All the township officers who wish to participate and all the city officials who wish to participate have already taken the survey and provided comments on the questions. So,
That was a written survey, wasn't it?
yes, they took it in written form, yeah.
Aaron, what is the time frame for wrapping it up?
Well, tentatively, our plan is to have the survey live until December 1. I think we would probably monitor the amount of responses we have, and that might affect when it's closed, but the committee would make that decision.
But right now, you're saying December 1st is when you want to wrap it up, the survey.
We would close that survey then, yes, and we would use that information to move on to the next steps in the process.
Okay.
So are only Houston County residents allowed to fill out that survey, or?
The intent is, it is designed for information from only Houston County residents, yes.
But there's nothing you can really do to prevent outside influence or whatever?
No, short of if the surveys are to be anonymous, it's hard to verify who is taking the surveys. We have had conversations with IT, and we will be able to see IP addresses from as part of the information the county gathers. We would only use that information in aggregate, though, so we wouldn't connect those dots to attempt to identify any respondent.
But if we see anomalies, we've got the IP addresses. If we see an anomaly of a specific IP address with multiple surveys, we can, we'll be able to address those anomalies when we look at the data.
Who has access to that?
Other questions or comments? Okay. In your interactions with folks, encourage them to go to the website and take that survey.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen?
Okay, consent agenda. Do we want to talk about any of these things on the consent agenda, or any questions about some of it? I see we have different people here concerning public health and human services.
I guess,
Any questions here? that
yeah,
you're- Okay,
I do. I guess
good.
in light of Loretta's retirement, I'm just wondering if we could put off a search at this point to look at the totality of our fiscal people that do our accounting and county-wide before we fill that position.
That's number 2 on here. Is there a consensus that we could hold off on the competitive search at this point?
When do we have our next, we have a work session next week? Do we not?
Yes.
Or
No,
was that-
next week's canceled because it's the
Next week's
5th
canceled,
Tuesday,
right?
Yes.
So it would be the first week in November?
which is
before-
our strategic planning session. So the next work group session will be the 17th of November, which will be focused on the
Yeah,
budget.
that goes- drags on a while.
Mhm.
That's okay.
Yeah,
She's
but
not-
there's-
if we put it off that long until November, and she's done the 20th of January, we could end up with a shortfall in that department as far as somebody to take care of the work that she was doing.
Is there somebody in that department that could take care of it if we?
It gets very.
Pardon?
What?
You wanna,
Come
Tess,
forward.
tonight, if you could,
No, I would just like
I
to
don't know if you want anything else.
We do have a real need to have that position turned over and not have it vacant. So if we have it vacant for any amount of time, and this last position filled took 7 months to fill for Tammy. From the time we posted, or from the time we got the notice of Dory to the time we got Tammy in. So we do need to, proceed, and we do need it filled. We have 50-some personnel in the human service department, and we need an accounting staff that can go after that revenue. So it is important. There's also compliance issues. There's 20-some reports coming out of public health from the compliance and reimbursement positions. So it is very important that we have that filled.
Yeah, and I highlight from a staffing perspective, it's a same number of people, but it is a reduction in the salary costs because we've realigned the office from a supervision standpoint.
My concern wasn't necessarily what it would cost, it was just looking at whether we have an opportunity to streamline the entire accounting system, but in light of this,
Yep.
if we need it, we need it. So
Mhm.
I'll withdraw my suggestion.
Thank you.
And there's also initiate a competitive search for adult service because of Andrea Onstead moving or taking a different position and left a vacancy in her area. Do we want to start competitive search for that too? Okay. Sheriff's Office, he left already, so,
We have-
those are pretty
Yeah, we have
straightforward.
two vacancies that the board had already approved filling. And we have one gentleman who has wished to return to work for the county.
Is that
Sheriff's.
Tyler?
Yeah, Tyler. And the sheriff welcomes him back, and so still has one vacancy they're working on filling.
So that reinstate simply means he was gone and is coming back. It's not that he's being probationary extended.
No, he's returning to county employment.
Commissioners, in the reinstatement of Mr. Fabian, he was gone approximately a month. I don't remember the exact day, but it's approximately a month. His reinstatement is at the wage that he left. However, his probation and his seniority will start over because of the collective bargaining, pursuant to his collective bargaining agreement.
how long was he here to begin with?
Well, he was here over a year,
Okay.
over a year.
So we won't need training in again.
3 years? Carol's
Yeah,
waving three fingers in the
I
background.
don't really recall exactly. He did a fine job for the county when he was here.
So he has to be under probation for that.
Just for the we just have to abide by the terms and conditions of the collective bargaining agreement. And, let me find where we are here.
You can ask that.
So whatever that puts in place, we can't set that aside. I think seniority is the real loss to the individual. But
Okay.
that is where it's at.
There's no union issue as far as hiring without advertising. I mean, reinstating is acceptable.
This was,
Search.
I did look at, that on the posting requirements, and that was not an issue.
Okay.
I had to stop and think about which bargaining agreement I'm in.
Okay.
And, let me see.
So that's the last item on the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda at that point?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I should have asked for further discussion, but I think we already did that, so. Sounds good.
I would just
Heather,
stay here.
when is our next joint meeting with Fillmore County for Public Health? Is it January? No, I
November.
didn't write it in my book. That's
November 26th.
November 26th?
November 26th is what I have on Tuesday afternoon for Board of Health, Mr. Chair, for
You will remind us of that date, will you not?
I will.
And I'll add it to the list.
We'll add it to the list, okay. Jeff will too.
We're even now, so
Yes,
We are, yeah.
sounds good. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to action items, and we'll start with number 3. Consider approving the addition of a 1.0 FTE tech cert for assessment technician to the assessor's office. We
Yeah.
did get the information from Jeff in our packet of Tessa's
We did, and I'm
evaluation.
looking for the department head. I expect her to join us here. I did send her a notice a few minutes ago. You got the information. I highly encourage the commissioners to consider filling this position based on the information that was forwarded for the benefit of the audience. The county has, I'll just overview that just briefly, we have approximately 16,000 parcels in this county, which means about each approximately 4,000 parcels to be reviewed each year. There's approximately 400 new units with new construction that has to be valued each year, approximately 300 mobile home units to be valued, approximately 300 various homesteads, 75 to 100 splits and combos, and a stack of sales verifications that's anywhere between 600 to 700. It's just a lot of work. Plus the verification of some of the historic records that we have going through. They're making very good progress on that, but that is a considered amount of work in that regard as well. And so we're highly recommending this so that the appraisers and the assessors can do the work that they do in this regard, and then there is still a lot of work that needs to be done by a clerical. And so we really are asking for this. This is not an increase in staffing, if you will. It depends upon the time frame you're looking at. This actually takes us back to 2011 staffing levels. Doesn't mean, as I tell folks, doesn't mean we have to stay at those staffing levels as we have attrition looking forward. Maybe at some point in the future we will be able to go down as far as if we have a turnover in an appraiser. But at this point in time, the workload is demanding this level of staffing, in my opinion.
So we would have 5 appraisers and then 1 tech clerical.
4 appraisers, the assessor, and 1 tech, which is your 2011 staffing levels.
Okay, 4 appraisers.
Cindy's a.
4 appraisers, an assessor, and a tech.
Okay, 6 people.
Six
And that
FTEs.
was what it was?
in 2011.
In 2011, yes, ma'am.
Did the personnel committee address this at all?
We discussed it, and we agreed to do our hiring of the assessor vacant position that was created when Naomi left, and which we did the last meeting.
Right.
So the search will be going out, I'm assuming, for that.
Yes, it closed Friday, Commissioner.
Because that was a budgeted item.
Right.
This tech clerk is not a budgeted item.
So it would add to the budget.
Yeah.
That is correct.
I guess my question here is, 2011, this is what we had. We reduced the employees. Now, we just recently got done with the state of Minnesota reviewing everything and getting us back on track. Do we need this person in order to stay on track and not fall behind or get in arrears with the state? I mean, they're watching us pretty close. And was that part of the reason that we fell behind in the first place, because we didn't have enough staff to take care and get all the work done that was necessary?
I don't know the answer to your last question. It just depends.
Cindy is here.
Oh, Cindy, come on up, please. What I can say, and this is just my opinion, it is not that we are on, and Cindy, please jump in here, but we are on schedule moving forward. However, that doesn't mean all of the work that was identified by the Department of Revenue has been completed. That work is ongoing and will be ongoing for a period of time, in addition to the regular work that has to be done by any up-to-date department. Not that any assessor's office is ever totally up-to-date, but is, in good standing. They have good processes in place. They have good people in place. It's just, and I also believe that at a time when you have a department of fully trained employees that are at the top of their game, if you will, they have been around a while. They understand. They're just more efficient at that point. And you have an opportunity with attrition that the county should fully evaluate whether or not you need a staff of 6 at that point in time. And I've made my position on that as very clear, that nothing is ever set in stone forever and ever. It's constant reevaluation. But at this point, this is where we're at.
Did that answer you, Bob, or did you have a question that I could maybe?
Unless you want to expand on it.
In 2011, when Diane left, we were beginning to get into the Vanguard program, and we started working solely in that, and we were told not to go out and do reviews, the quintile at that time. I think it's difficult for me to tell you what caused it, because people aren't here to explain their ends of things. I think it was a lot of
Excuse me, explain what?
to say what caused us to be behind right now, because it's not fair for people who aren't here to give their side. I think that there was a lot of oversight in different ways. We're paying the price. We have to get caught up, and we have to get caught up with things that haven't been done correctly or haven't been done. And we have to maintain on what we have to do at an annual level and go forward. And we're in the crunch right now. It's kind of like the accordion. Both sides have pushed in on us. We need to go forward and catch up, and we need staff. We just do not have the staff. Did that answer the question? Okay. I think our biggest concern, though, is adding to the budget when we're trying so hard to reduce our budget and our levy. I can address something on that. I can tell you right now
the way it's going right now, if we do not have the people to go and make sure corrections are being made, we will have another year of many abatements, because we have to go through many parcels to make sure they're correct.
How
So-
will the tech clerk help you with that?
They can do easy things that my staff is doing right now, so that my staff can do the stuff that they're trained to do.
A trained tech clerk?
Any person right now to get started and take over, there are easy things like sending out applications and things like that that can be taken off my staff right now so that they can do things more advanced. But I can tell you that, yes, what I'm looking at right now is going to be another year of bad abatements if we don't get some, and maybe 2 years, until we can get things caught up more.
So the hiring, excuse me, Jim.
No, go ahead.
The way I'm looking at this is that we need some trained technical help. And if we hire a person that's inexperienced, I don't see where that's gonna help us out here when we need it. So if we were to do anything, I'd rather see us get some help that's trained and already knows the system, is professional, and maybe we could do that in a 67-day employee, or hire somebody out for a short period of time to help us get caught up.
We did go through Vanguard at $125 an hour. They were full this year, so we weren't able to get them this year. We did have them the last 2 years. To get a fully trained person down here, we would have to pay a lot more than what we have on our books right now. They're not going to come here for.
Could we
So
go
the-
with a 67-day employee until we address this with the
That,
budget?
I don't feel is going to be, about the time you get somebody, if you could find somebody completely trained, maybe, but until you find that person, you're gonna be spending as much time training them as you're getting out of it, if you only have 67 days.
Well, I think I'm on record for past issues being pretty fiscally conservative, but I've spoken with Cindy and some other personnel, I just think we need to get caught up here and to relieve stress on some other employees. But my question, didn't we help Winona at one point? And I'm not sure if it was in this realm or another area, but I'm positive we helped them at some point.
In another department.
Okay. Is that a possibility to ask Fillmore, Winona?
To help us
to-
out.
Fillmore is short-staffed right now.
They don't
Yeah.
have an
They have openings.
assessor, Wabasha doesn't have an assessor
Okay,
right now.
well, yeah, you don't have to.
It's hard being stuck in the corner.
Let me just, okay, Commissioner.
The only thing I was gonna comment on was, as far as the level of training, we don't need somebody that can do assessing, we don't need somebody that can go out and do the appraising. We need somebody with secretarial abilities that can do the filing and do the reports and things of that nature. So we're not looking for an assessor, we're not looking for an appraiser, but somebody, I mean, we could advertise for secretarial skills that would support them in learning the system that they have to work with.
Commissioner,
would
that was going to be my comment, that this position is a technical clerk, which is a support position. In addition to those skills and abilities that you reflected on, we'll also be looking at someone who has good interpersonal skills, because they're going to be front desk, first line with the public that comes in a very sensitive area. And so we will be looking at that. The training we're talking about, Commissioners, isn't the same learning curve as with our appraisers, which is a very long, steep road. There is a training curve, a learning curve, but it is not at that level. 67 days is about the time period which we would have somebody fairly trained in. I mean, we're all of us are always learning daily in our jobs. But we feel this is a good solution for today. And my last comment, because I'm trying to remember the various questions, my last comment is, what can we do just to get us through this hump? This time period right now isn't just isn't short term. It is on a scale of things in county government, but it isn't short term in that it's just going to be a month, 6 months. We're looking at short term being our fix getting things lined up and on a good solid path. We're talking 2.5 years, or maybe 3 or 4. We didn't get ourselves in our bind in 6 months. We aren't going to be able to get ourselves out of it in the last year. Excellent progress has been made, and the department is on a good path, but they still have a long road to hoe.
I would just comment too that the area we're talking about, as I mentioned with the investigator, that's a sensitive area to constituents, to our county residents, as is this. I mean, I don't really want to incur the wrath of La Crescent taxpayers again, or I just think it's, regardless of what you're paying in taxes, nobody is, saying, oh, wait, send me some more. I mean, it's a sensitive area. Taxes get their attention, and if they think we're not doing it correctly or we're not doing it timely, that really gets their attention and then gets our attention. So I just think we need to shore this office up at this point.
Of course, then we hear from
So-
those constituents that we're hiring more people.
Exactly.
So what I'm
Raising
hearing
taxes.
is that if we hire this tech clerk, the abatements will go away, everything will be cleaned up, we'll be caught up, everything's gonna be,
We'll be doing it quicker, but it's not going to be done by the end of by the time taxes go out in the spring. We're working as hard as we can to get as many areas cleaned up as we can. But they're getting burned out too. One thing that was brought to my attention by one of my staff, or reminded, is our office our work touches every individual within this county and some that don't live in this county. Taxes affect every landowner. Until we get everything straightened out and correct and error-free as much as anybody could, there are going to be those who they're not right.
and that's where I'm coming from, is I think we need to find some professional, experienced help and make the investment in doing that, instead of just hiring
You mean an experienced help tech?
or an assessor. I mean,
An assessor?
or I mean, appraiser, sorry.
Okay.
Excuse me.
We have, what, 5 appraisers that, it closed on Friday for the appraisers. And we have 5 that we have to look at. To get an appraiser, there's a lot of them come out of places like real estate school out of St. Cloud State. But when they have a student loans and an overhead like that, they can't come here for what we pay to start off.
So is there any way that the state could come step in and give us some help?
My CO, my officer that I work through with the state, is coming down for 2 days to help with our commercial that we have to get. We have to get our commercial within the county all up to date, and he's coming down for 2 days for that. Mind you, he has the whole region, and 2 of those counties don't have an assessor, so his time is then too. We at least have an assessor, and most staff, some don't have even the assessor.
Question with regard to the budget aspect of this. what would a starting tech wage be and what would a starting appraiser wage be? Or cost?
I don't have those numbers in front of me.
Starting assessor was like 17, wasn't it?
And I think the tech was like 60.
The appraiser,
They are close.
I'm sorry, appraiser.
step, 2019, step one wages for a tech clerk one, which is a B2 is $15.52 an hour. Step one, which we are getting close to the end of the year, we will be in 2020 soon, is $15.99 per hour. Of course, you have the roll-ups depending upon what they elect for benefits, and then the taxes, Social Security taxes. Commissioner Johnson, you're absolutely right. It would be a luxury to have fully experienced appraisers and tech clerks in this position at this time, and not having that solution at hand as an option to bring to you at this time, we're looking at growing our own, which is what we've had to do with the three that appraisers that we have, and likely would be doing with the fourth. When we advertise and post these positions, we post them across the scale of experience, and would have loved to, I haven't looked at the applicant pool yet, but I would feel very, I would be surprised and shocked if a senior level appraiser, fully certified in commercial property, AMA certified, would be in that applicant pool. Every county in our region, I believe, is in the same position we are at, having to start with training appraisers and growing them into it.
One thing to keep in mind, we have to go through, as appraisers, we go through the different steps. The state has made it mandated that within 5 years of hire date, they all become an AMA, which is one step below a county assessor. To get anybody with 5 years or more to come down here, they would more likely go to Fillmore or Wabasha and get the assessor job, because they were at AMA. That is basically an interview and an 8-hour job, or 8-hour test before you get the SAMA with your experience. So to get somebody really trained, I think they'd go to one of the other jobs and get a higher position, unless there's a reason that pulls them to Houston County.
There you go. You don't know that for sure.
We don't know for sure.
There could
I'm
be
just-
somebody that wants to move here.
You're exactly right, and
And
I'm,
had roots here and wanted to move back or whatever, so.
yeah.
So we advertised.
Mhm.
We did. We
So if you
advertised
have
for
5
that.
applicants for Naomi's job, this
Yes,
appraiser.
that's what I was told.
appraiser's position, I think Eric is saying, why can't we pick 2 of those?
No,
No.
I didn't.
Is that what you're thinking? No. Okay.
I guess what I'm saying is, I don't see where the tech clerk, an inexperienced tech clerk is gonna help us in this bind at this moment. And we've talked about having a floater, somebody that can go around, cross-train and go help here and there.
Mhm.
Has that been looked at as a possibility? Cause I know when people come in with a question about their taxes, they're gonna talk to the tech clerk, and then she isn't gonna know the answer, and they're gonna come to you.
That's partial true. I also think that the building of the website adds a lot of information from our department, as far as all the fact sheets and explanations of things. If you go to the new site, we put a lot of work into getting that started. I think that any tech could go and realize that quickly, where to go, the different programs, land programs and tax programs like veterans exclusions and things like that. So I don't think somebody not knowing is too big of an issue. And not only that, they usually don't know it once, and then somebody else comes to their their side and say, okay, this is how you find it, and they realize. And that's what we need. We need somebody who can understand and move forward with this.
So what I've heard, and maybe Cindy, you can address this, is that you have talked about the tech clerk doing very specific duties, not just mailings, which would be very general, but things such as helping with the homesteads and sales verifications, and maybe in splits, and you can, that wouldn't be something a floater necessarily could do.
It'd be putting a lot onto a floater because they would have to almost remember it, re-remember it every time they came back in, where if somebody's doing on a more.
So there would be project-based, there would be projects within this division, and other divisions would be the same way, that we can have floaters that do some lower level mailings, greetings, meet and greet, but if you're looking at actually getting into the various programs, that might be more difficult unless those programs somehow cross over into other departments where they have some kind of at least touch the same kind of work, touch the same work, if you will. So that's the request today. It'd be nice to see us having our need wane rather than our needs increase, and we're just, that's where we're at right now, trying to ebb that flow of keep it within the banks, and then hopefully it'll narrow down, and then maybe you can go back to other staffing levels over time.
So
I guess
we're
it-
gonna hire somebody and then, but we're planning on in the future to get rid of somebody?
No, through natural attrition, where we have people, we have turnover for various reasons, resignations, retirements, they transfer to other departments. That happens pretty regularly. You have a pretty healthy consent agenda in that regard.
I guess at this point, I would make a motion to approve the addition of a tech clerk.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Further discussion?
I think the reason I second the motion is that the tech clerk is going to take some of the duties of all four of the appraisers plus the assessor, so that all four of them and the assessor are going to, it's going to free up some time for all of them as far as getting the work done that they need to do to stay up to date with all the things that are going on. So that's my reasoning for seconding and approving of this when we vote.
Further discussion, or we'll call for the vote? All in favor of approving the addition of a tech clerk?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you for your time, Commissioners.
Thank you.
And I just want to clarify, my reasoning is that I don't see where this, an inexperienced tech clerk is going to help us in this binding situation we're in now. I'd rather see us get some professional outside help if we needed to get us caught up if we're behind.
I respect that. Hopefully we can show you that it can work. Thank you.
Next item is consider approval of Northern Natural Gas's application for exemption under the Wetland Conservation Act. This actually is not really related to the issue that we were dealing with, the city of La Crescent and Northern Gas. This is just a wetland delineation, which they went through all the hoops to,
It's to take out old
It's
installation.
to remove the old installation, which
Yes.
is, I think, technically on hold until they figure out what they're doing with the new one.
right,
But
cap it off and,
procedurally, we need to close out this request.
I went through all the documents, it's
Yep.
pretty self-explanatory.
yep, I talked to Aaron this morning about it too. So we're actually looking for a motion to approve the wetland conservation exemption.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Number 5, consider approval of Resolution 1937, certificate of final acceptance of the, with Farner Asphalt Sealers for pavement marking. That's just the approval of the resolution.
closing out the projects. Yep.
closing up the project for the sake. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Number 6, consider approval of Resolution 1938, final acceptance of project CP 219 with Bruning Rock Products for maintenance of rock. Maintenance rock, I mean, not of rock.
All of these are dealing with Brian as far as things that.
Oh, maybe you want to,
These
you
down the
need
line.
to explain anymore?
I'm assuming they're all acceptable as far as your perspective?
Yes. Yep. We have reviewed them. All of them pretty much fall right in line with the dollar amount that was, actually, I believe 3 out of the 4 are under the original contracted amount. The one that's, actually, I guess this last one is over the amount by 1%. But this other one that you're talking about right now with the Bruning Rock product one, that one's pretty substantially over the approved amount, or the original contract amount of $220,291.20. The reason for the overrun, that was an extra 30% approval that the board did this spring. So even though it looks like it's substantially over, it was what the board approved.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 7 is the same idea, the approval of Farner asphalt sealers for crack filling.
Move to approve.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 8, the contract with Farner Asphalt for seal coating. Final.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
We actually got most of this in the packet. There was 81 pages to go through this time.
Yep.
And I shut and shorted it.
I know. Consider reappointment of Paul Frichte to a 3-year term on the Crooked Creek Watershed Board.
Yeah, Paul filled a partial appointment for a gentleman that retired, and the Creek Watershed Board has asked, and talked to him, and he's willing to continue in a full term, so.
I've dealt with him on a couple of sites and whatnot. He does a good job. He's knowledgeable, and I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Excellent.
Okay. Consider amending resolution to sell land parcel 21.115 through sealed bid auction.
Now, this is just an amendment, right?
Yeah, so it's an
Yes,
amendment to it.
amending the resolution.
What it provides is the legal definition of the easement that we were discussing the last time. So as is, it approves. It's approved to sell the land without the easement. The amended version would add the easement to the description, and then I'd go forth with advertising.
As I spoke before, I think it's important to have the easement included so that everybody's on the same page. They buy the land, the easement is there if we ever need it for, be it a bike path or a turn lane or both. The cost is not going to be as significant. I mean, if we or somebody has to buy the easement, it's going to be a lot more expensive after the fact than it would be by having it in place up front.
Be recorded as,
Right.
and then we advertise at that point. Is there a motion?
Having said that, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And number 11, consider authorizing up to $4,500 for legal representation from Attorney Squires to augment the zoning staff for the Board of Adjustment rehearing of the Schutz Quarry.
Attorney Squires is familiar with the case, having represented us on behalf of MCIT when it went from the Board of Adjustment into the court system. It's been remanded back down to the Board of Adjustment to rehear. Our county attorney has said that he's concerned with any appearances of representing both the county in the case and also representing the Board of Adjustment in the procedural side of things, and so would like to remain neutral in advising the board of how to proceed with the case, and recommends bringing in Attorney Squires to advise and assist the county, the zoning officer, in the process of the case hearing.
So
we're
Attorney
talking.
Squires is gonna be running them?
No, he would be there to assist and provide legal advice.
This has never been done before, has it?
I think it has, hasn't it?
No,
I don't know.
not in the situation on a Board of Adjustment hearing.
I think
My
it-
concern is that we're lawyering up on a hearing, a public hearing. Why are we lawyering up on a public hearing? I don't have a problem with Sam being there. He's our attorney. Why do we need another lawyer there I mean, last time it went through, it was done without any additional lawyer. Why does it need to be done this time?
I guess, just from the way I look at it and what I've understood is Squires has the expertise in this field as far as what the case is all about and whatnot. And I think Sam is more comfortable in that regard. And because it's been thrown back by the judge, I think specifics are gonna be more important as far as this case is concerned. Because it's gonna go back again, I would
So-
assume.
And
At
that's
this
what
time-
that's what I worry about, is if this goes back again, we're gonna have most likely Squires representing us again, and he was participating in this hearing. I think that puts us in legal jeopardy. That's what I'm worried about that.
I wouldn't put us in legal jeopardy, though. I mean, I don't know.
Well, depends on what Squires' role is gonna be here. I don't know what his role is going to be.
But is he gonna be there instead of our county attorney? He will be the only attorney there. Sam will not be there.
No,
Is that
Sam's gonna
correct?
be there for the Board of Adjustment, correct? The board.
Yes. Well, whether he's physically there, but he's available to the Board of Adjustment for any procedural questions, advice.
I was under the impression that Sam was more comfortable with having Squires because of his expertise.
As well, yeah.
I look at this as trouble. If this is supposed to be a public hearing, a simple public hearing, zoning presents their facts, the other side presents theirs, and the Board of Adjustment runs the hearing. It's really not the zoning's department to run the hearing, the Board of Adjustment runs the hearing. So I guess I'm trying to figure out why Mr. Squires needs to be there at the tune of $4,500 to represent the zoning.
If the Board of Adjustment has legal questions, is it felt that Mr. Squires can provide a more accurate answer than Sam? With regard to the
We
zoning
were
issues?
just told that Sam is gonna be working for the Board of Adjustment, and Squires is gonna be working for the zoning department.
Yeah, as it reads here, to augment the zoning staff. So in regard to your question, I guess it's if a question arises that the zoning staff doesn't feel comfortable opining on, there's Squires to augment the zoning department. Regardless of what the initial outcome was, the it was all presented by zoning, so it's going to fall back on zoning.
Mhm.
So if they need a leg up, I guess that's what you'd consider.
That's what the recommendation here is.
Yeah.
A leg up.
Well, if they need some technical, legal backing to,
That attorney Sam is not familiar with. He is more for the procedure, Robert's rules or whatever, where Squires would be our legal represent for our side of the case at the hearing.
My concern is this is starting to look like a trial or court case, and it's not. It's a public hearing. And I don't see the need to spend money on an outside counsel when we have Sam there representing the county. And I know Sam has said in the past that I know a few years back he got an extra bump in pay in order to take on some of these land use cases, and so I think we should use Sam. That's what our county attorney is there for.
I kind of wish Aaron was here right now to explain this. It's under his name on the,
When is this rehearing?
don't know.
It is been scheduled for November. Looking to verify. I think it was the 21st.
Jess, could you walk down and ask Aaron to?
I could call.
21st has been confirmed for the board hearing.
November 21st.
November 21st, yes.
I mean, my goal here is to make sure that we, this time around, because we didn't have it last time around, a fair public hearing. And it was because of a certain member of the board that didn't recuse himself. Now it got sent back. And now this is gonna cost the county another $4,500 to remand this hearing, along with the other costs of doing this over again.
I'll wait till Aaron's down here.
It is a public hearing, but the final decision by the Board of Adjustment has to go through the courts. It's not something, the public hearing that is then remanded to the county board for approval. This is the county's final, supposedly final action if
That's
the
it.
court
The
doesn't.
Board of
approve
Adjustment
that.
is the final say in the matter, that's right. Whether it goes back to the appeals, it only depends on the decision they come up with, you
Right.
know? So, we gotta be careful that we're not prejudging this. And I'm doing this, questioning this only because of the liability issue of the county.
I think, however, that based on Squire's experience, not only here but probably statewide, our chances of creating liability are probably lessened than if we go out on something we're not very
The thing it is.
well versed in.
Is that it was under his advice back in 15 that quarry was considered a legal non-conforming mine. And it was under his advice that decision was made in 2015 and also in 2008.
But that wasn't the question that got this remanded, was it?
No, but Squires was their attorney then too.
we have questions, Aaron, whether we really need to hire Attorney Squires if Attorney Yan could represent the county equally well at the rehearing.
Sure. Based on my conversations with the attorney's office, we were looking to have Squires come in because he has expertise in land use matters that, you know, the county attorney may not have. That's his field of specialty, where the county attorney is more of perhaps a generalist legal advisor.
So what role would he be playing?
He would be representing the county's position in the matter.
He would do the presentation for the hearing?
Correct.
So he would be running he'd be doing the zoning, your position part of it?
Correct, because it's more appropriate to do that in that I have an opinion in this case. It's my decision that's being appealed.
So you're not gonna present the findings of the staff, and it'll be him doing that?
We would look to Attorney Squires to advise us on how best to handle that, but that would be one option perhaps.
Has this ever been done before?
Not in my tenure. Attorney Squires is also very familiar with the case, and that he represented it in the last appeal.
See, that's what he's defended this case at the appeals level, and now he's going to be presenting the case at the rehearing? I feel that's gonna put us in jeopardy.
Again, I guess I'm not a lawyer myself, but those decisions I think are probably best made by the county attorney and our legal counsel with the expertise in land use, being Attorney Squires.
So the county attorney is recommending us hiring Attorney Squires to do the findings?
That's my understanding.
And what will the county attorney be doing?
That would be a question you have to pose to him.
The way it was explained to me, he's still gonna be representing the Board of Adjustment if they had technical questions, or?
I think that could be one outcome. I'm not entirely clear on the process, again, because it's a out of the ordinary situation. We're deferring to the county attorney's judgment and then the expertise in the land use matters with Attorney Squires.
Attorney Squires is going to present the information to the Board of Adjustment so that they've got information from him as far as the land use issues for them in their decision making as a representative of the zoning department.
Instead of Attorney Yacht?
No, instead of Aaron.
Instead of Aaron.
Instead of Aaron, okay. Well,
Is that allowed in our ordinances to do that?
I don't think there's anything that expressly allows it or prohibits it that I'm aware of.
I don't know, I'm very uncomfortable with that. It's never been done before. I guess I'd like to see more information.
Well, this isn't a criminal matter, but in all kinds of cases, rather than the defendant standing up and giving his story, the lawyer stands up for the defendant, and I guess I'd see that in this case, instead of...
But this isn't, this is a public hearing, this isn't a court case.
Well, no, but does the public have the right to say, well, we don't want to listen to him, we want to listen to Aaron? Aaron already gave his presentation at the initial hearing, and I don't think it was remanded because he made any technical errors in
That's
his
why
presentation.
So why would he need to have a lawyer do it this time around? I don't understand.
I think Aaron's going because Attorney Yant recommended having Squires represent the zoning department.
To run the
To do the findings
To do the
for
findings
their
and to
help.
run the meeting?
No, not run the meeting. They do the findings, and the other side does their findings, and then it's open to the public to discuss. Correct?
Mhm.
And then the Board of Adjustment will make the decision.
The Board of Adjustment made a previous decision.
Mhm.
The courts threw it back to the Board of Adjustment, not based on the decision that they made. It was made on the basis of one of the members, per the court's opinion, being predisposed in the matter when the decision was made.
Biased, yeah.
It was biased.
Okay.
So
And
the
because-
information presented isn't in question, it's just who was on the Board of
And
Adjustment
then
at the time.
that reverts back to then why do we need to have a lawyer do it when Aaron, it was no fault of Aaron and the staff to do it?
Right.
Why do we need to have a lawyer do it this time? That was actually our lawyer in the appeals process. I mean, I look at that as a conflict.
I think we'll see if Attorney Yant can come over and help us make this decision. Jeff just went to give him a call.
I guess I kinda see what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I see what you're saying, yeah. Cause in the rehearing, it's basically gonna be the same information
Mm-hmm.
that was heard at the first public hearing, with one less member on the Board of Adjustment.
Right.
Presumably, yeah.
Presumably,
Yeah, should be.
it was ordered from the court to, that person was to
Well,
recuse himself.
The presumably is
way
that
over from
some of the
Presumably,
information
the
that
same information.
the Schutz people might bring could be different.
Attorney Yant is on his way over if you want to take a 5-minute
Yeah,
recess.
can we take a?
Yep. Okay, please make sure your microphone's back on.
Okay. Attorney Yant, the reason we asked you to come over is we have a question about the need for hiring Attorney Squires to represent the zoning office at the rehearing public hearing.
And as far as specifically just any specific question or just exactly why I would suggest that that's a course to follow.
I guess the second one.
Okay. And I guess I'll go backwards a little bit, as you're aware of these boards, in this case, the Board of Adjustment, when it's meeting, is acting as a quasi-judiciary role, acting like a judge. And I talked to Jay Squires, Paul Rivers, Scott Anderson, that do different CLEs that we go to. The statute's sort of vague when you have these contested hearings, because how it works is that I would assist the county, Aaron, our zoning department, in whatever decision he has as far as litigating that or preparing that for litigation. And then we get to a point, there's an appeal, and we get in front of the Board of Adjustment in this case. And the Board of Adjustment, if from time to time in that hearing, may have legal questions. And it's an analogy I would use to be much like if I'm prosecuting a case and the judge doesn't know how to do something in the courtroom, she would defer to me, ask me how that procedure would work. And it's an inherent conflict of interest. And I discussed this with Squire specifically in this case, because if you look at the judge's order in this, there was, in this case here, that's coming up again, is that there was a question in mid-hearing about evidentiary issues regarding, in this case, it was a governmental estoppel and how that law would work on that. And so it was raised by the appellants in that issue. Why are they looking to me for that advice? How can they be that neutral, detached magistrate or board? Is I am assisting the county with this, but yet I am assisting the judge, if you will, in this case. The issue also came up with the recusals of the when there was, I guess it's not motions, but requests to have some of the Board of Adjustment members recuse themselves because of bias. Again, they're looking to me for how that process would work. And I just think in this type of case where there are really very relevant issues and issues that are, some of them are unknown as far as we would anticipate either our office or our MCIT, if the judge would rule against us, the county would probably appeal this, because there's a lot of issues in here that are undetermined by case law in Minnesota. And even if it's one of those cases where we have learned that if the county didn't want to appeal, our insurance company, MCIT, they're going to probably want to appeal this even over our objection, because there are impacts here that could be statewide. And the reason I indicate that is because I want to make this, I want to do this as correctly as possible, and just do it correctly. And my thought on this, speaking with Squires, Mr. Squires is going to take this if it gets to the district court level, this would be a prudent approach to do this, because I would still be involved in the process, but I would step back from any advocacy role and just be there for the Board of Adjustment if they had legal questions. Again, recusals, evidence that should come in or shouldn't come in, what would that be, processes that had been done, and then whatever I would advise the board, if they took that advice or didn't, then the appellant's counsel would make record or argue to that board why they should or shouldn't do something, and then I would assume Mr. Squires would do it on our behalf, why something should or shouldn't be done and my advice be followed. And it creates, it allows a better and clear-cut adversarial process for both sides, and it takes away that uncomfortableness that you get when I'm acting sort of in a dual role. If I'm assisting the county with this, but yet advising the judge, if you will, in this. I think, I don't know if we would come back to this board. There's probably a circumstance we'd come back with this situation, but this is more of a, it's something that the years that I have been here that we've never done, and it's more of the nature and the seriousness of this issue, and how important it is, I think, because of the long-lasting effects.
And how is, okay, whatever.
And then,
Go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
So this has never been done before?
I don't know about other counties, but I know in this county, I'm not aware. It's either, I know in the past, my understanding is Attorney Squires did all the land use work, and that had been the process before I came on board, where I started doing much more of the land use work. It used to be, it's my understanding, I believe when Jim Fabian was the county attorney, a lot of the land use work was someone else did it outside the county attorney's office. When Ms. Hamel was here, I think Mr. Squires, or that office did, was taken outside the office. And this is unique circumstance to my being the county attorney on this. And it's something we've had a lot of thoughts about going through that last hearing. I just thought that this would be a prudent approach to do it this way. As I indicated, I think there's the $4,500 is what's being requested. I indicated to County Administrator Babinski, I have $1,000, perhaps $1,500 in my budget that I could supplement, or not supplement, but add to that $4,500 because of where, by looking at my budget at this point, we have certain money for experts, and we haven't expended it yet, knowing what our trials that are scheduled before the end of the year. At this point, I don't know if we would use that or not, but I would have that available to add to reduce the ask to the board.
When I say it's never been done before, I mean the fact that we would have Jay Squires play Aaron's role in the zoning and presenting the findings.
I don't know as far as how the mechanics of that would work, I see him as more of working in tandem with Eric, or with our zoning administrator, with Aaron, doing it there. I see that more of him like I would normally do as answering and assisting him with that hearing, acting as counsel for the board for the county for that specific hearing.
Do you know if that's allowed in our ordinances to have an attorney to present the zoning's findings in a Board of Adjustment hearing?
I am not aware that it's not allowed, but what I would suggest is I don't believe that he is presenting those. What he would be doing is that they would be working together on this. And when I say that is I see that more just like an attorney would, it's just an advisory role. I don't see him actually acting
Kind of
as-
clarifying the questions that the Board of Adjustment may have.
Well, exactly. If there was a question from the Board of Adjustment about X or Y, I would anticipate, if Mr. Locker doesn't know the answer to that, or he could, or if there was some question how to answer that to the Board of Adjustment, you could talk to your attorney on that, Mr. Squires, and say, hey, there's asking this question. And the reason I think that's important is because you're making a record, and that record is going to be used for appeal. And the pot that the court has to make a decision on the district court is only what's allowed into evidence at that Board of Adjustment hearing. And then there would also be some, the statements that Mr. Locker would make, and those would be, if we're trying to advocate our position, I think it would be helpful to have an attorney there that could assist him.
In retrospect, in the first hearing, there was material that could have been put into the record if I perhaps approached it with more of a legal mind that would have been beneficial to withstand some of the arguments being made that I didn't put in the record and that I didn't anticipate those types of arguments being made. A counsel would assist with that. I also think it's critical that we get the correct resolution to this issue given the prevalence of these types of sites throughout the county. This is the first one we're working through that's not permitted and has a lot of questions about either continual use or expansion. We have numerous sites like that throughout the county. Making an error that might be the result of a lack of that legal mind focusing on the issue really sets the stage to continuing the problems as we work through all those remaining sites.
So
And
you
I
said that,
What I was going to say is, just to follow up on this, what happens, and that's a perfect example, it would be, Aaron could have, in theory, turned to me and asked me, hey, should we introduce this into evidence? And I would say, yeah, go ahead. But then you could have the Board of Adjustment ask me, should we allow that in? Well, it doesn't work that way because I'm serving two masters it that way. I'm not trying to advocate for us, but yet the board's coming to me for advice.
what worries me is what Aaron just said about we need to get the resolution we're looking for.
Well, I guess by that I mean whatever resolution we reach, the processes need to be correctly reached. So I feel it would be very unfortunate to reach one of any outcome and have it be the result of some sort of legal technicality and not the actual issues on the ground.
Well, see, when we start talking and we're looking for the resolution, we're getting into where we're prejudging something here, and we can't be doing that. I mean,
I've already
No, we
made a
are.
decision on this.
No,
We
can't do
have a
that.
decision. We want that shut. It's up to the Board of Adjustment to decide if that's what they agree with or if they agree with the owners. The
That's
zoning's
right.
already said it should be shut. That's why it's before the Board of Adjustment. We have a predisposition already.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. Aaron's made a decision, it's been appealed, and my office at this point has assisted him in, going through the correct processes to support his decision that he's made. And I'm not saying it's the right or wrong decision, I personally believe it is, or after knowing what the law is and what the facts are. But that's up for the Board of Adjustment to decide in that
Right.
quasi-judiciary role.
Okay. I think what we really need to do is make a motion to authorize paying Attorney Squires to represent the zoning staff at the rehearing. And if we do get a second to that, or a motion to that effect, we can have a roll call vote?
I call a roll call.
Yes. But I need a motion, first of all.
I'll make it a motion to approve the authorization of up to $4,500 for legal representation from Attorney Squires with regard to the Schutz Quarry matter.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
District 1 is...
Yes.
Yes. 2,
No.
3,
Yes?
4,
Yes.
and 5 is absent.
Thank you very much for
Thank you for
your
time.
input.
You have 3 yeses, 1 no.
Okay, moving on to discussion items. Administrator updates.
I had a good meeting yesterday with the regional administrators. I will send a copy of this around, but they have provided some update on what they're looking at with their juvenile detention center and their declining numbers and such. So I'll send that to the board for review later.
Okay.
But overall, good meeting with the other administrators. Had some talks about some of the software packages I discussed with the board at one of our work group sessions and what they were using, and got a couple of recommendations for some other products to look into. So, upcoming activities next week, we have the district, AMC district meeting. And then the 29th, there's no meeting because of the 5th Tuesday thing. And our work group session for the 5th of November will be a strategic planning session, 9 to 3:30 down in the EOC room. And you all have seen a draft of the agenda of that and the survey to go with that, and that survey will go back to AMC. That's been shared with all the commissioners and the department heads. So, which we hope to have most of participating at. I know we have at least one scheduling conflict already, but we'll do what we can with the rest of folks. So, at the Finance Committee hearing, we did discuss the kind of the follow-on end-of-year schedule as we go with the 2020 budget and such. And so the work group session on the 17th November? Yeah, 19th November, excuse me. That work group session will be dedicated to reviewing the final budget proposals of the staff for board approval. So that's kind of, as our schedule wraps up towards the end of the year, that'll be our budget focus for that meeting. And then, of course, the truth and taxation coming up as well.
On the 6th.
Yep.
Or whatever date it is. Sounds good. Commissioner Burns, you have anything?
I will add, with regard to the Finance Committee meeting this morning, there was discussion with regard to the Highway Department and a capital projects fund transfer from the reserve to accommodate the purchasing of the land that we bought, the 3 acres that we bought to expand it, and to have some additional monies in the capital improvements project fund for upcoming expenses, be it design or whatever, so that we've got some money put aside to compensate for some of those expenses that we're incurring already.
Okay.
So it was recommended that we make a transfer from the reserve into that capital improvements fund.
I'll have that on motion for the next board meeting to
Right.
make that all official.
Right. The other thing I'll report on, I went to that St. Charles meeting about solar panels and whatnot. Then I had a meeting with the school and the city, and that isn't gonna happen,
Okay.
Is it mainly because of their own utility?
basically. St. Charles and Lanesboro are considered generators, so they generate, so they have a different kind of contract with My Energy. We're just a buyer, so our contract doesn't allow for it. I think if My Energy wanted to do a project, or if Darylyn wanted to do a project, that'd be different. But I did read about Fillmore County having a huge project gonna go in on, I think it was 580 acres or something like
No,
that.
they're
Looking at it, but
they're not doing it. They're
Fillmore County's not doing it. They've got investors that
Yeah,
are
that's
talking about
not,
it.
that, the county itself isn't doing it.
No, but I think it's gonna have to be independent investors if there's ever gonna be anything like that in Houston County.
Yeah.
And it has to be along a heavy transmission line,
Yeah,
which is in the southern part of the county.
right.
Okay.
I think there's transmission lines in Houston County, but
Yeah, in the southern.
it
southern
doesn't matter, you know.
Hmm.
If somebody comes in and gets a deal with Tri, or My Energy or Darylyn, that'd be one thing, but we aren't. That's all I got.
Commissioner Johnson,
I don't have anything right now.
Commissioner Miller.
Well, I've been gone for a week, so I have no meeting. But I would mention that tonight at the La Crescent Event Center, Allison reminded me that there's a design thinking workshop presented by Destination Medical Center out of Rochester. So if anyone is so inclined, they can attend. It starts at 6:30, and that again is at the La Crescent Area Event Center.
I'm taking a couple of the First Tech Challenge team kids to that, and then I know the Caledonia Robotics team is planning on attending as well.
And
So.
La Crescent's robotics team is very active, so I'm sure they'll be well represented.
Sounds good. And I had no meetings in between either, so nothing. Tomorrow, all day meeting.
Starting early in the morning.
Sounds good. Anything else to bring before the board?
I'd
Any-
make a motion to adjourn.
No public comment?
Oh, well, no public.
Maybe Craig.
Now's your chance, Craig. Anything? No? Okay, well, we tried.
Was there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 11:13.